I can't get these memories out of my mind, and some kind of madness has started to evolve.
Hello. So I have a question for all of you. How many of you have seen the movie Inside Out? Pretty much all of you. Fantastic. Okay. So, for those of you who haven't seen the movie Inside Out, basically what the movie does is it explains what happens inside of our brains. So it explains all of the emotions that go on and how they interact and conflict and stuff like that. So in the movie, they followed this girl named Riley. Actually, they follow the emotions in the girl, and they show what happens. So I think that they do a really good job explaining it, because they show at one point Riley is running around in the house and Joy is taking over and she's all happy and stuff, and then she gets to a cord and then fear takes in and stops her to keep her from tripping over the cord. So I think it's pretty cool they explain that. They also explain how our personalities work. So whenever you make a memory, it makes this little ball. It's like you get to see it and you can rewind it, stuff like that. And if it's an important memory, it makes what's called a core memory. And so it goes into this little thing and it makes part of your personality. So what's happening in the movie, I'm going to show you a clip. Okay, what's happening in this clip, Riley has moved to San Francisco from like halfway across the country. And so she's kind of freaking out, and so are her emotions. They don't really know how to handle this. And since they're in like a stressful situation, sadness can now turn memories sad, no matter what emotion they were. So if it was a happy memory, it can be sad now. And the other emotions kind of freak out and they don't know what to do. So they kind of push her off and push her aside. Well, Riley gets upset in class and makes a sad core memory, and Joy freaks out because all the other ones are joy. So Joy tries to get rid of it, and in doing that, Joy sends herself and sadness and all of the core memories into long-term memory, where all of our memories go when we go to sleep. And that's really bad, because then there's no joy or sadness in what they call headquarters to take over. So I want you guys to watch this clip. Okay, how many of you have ever felt like sadness? Just let me lay here. I don't want to move. Just let me lay a few hours. I feel like that a whole lot. So what do you think is happening to sadness right then? She is sad. Depression. That's what I'm going for. I think she's depressed. I mean, if you listen to what she said, Joy was like, be positive. And she's like, I'm positive we're getting lost. She made positive opportunities negative. She didn't want to get up and move around. You know, typical depression type things. But, I mean, if we look at the movie, like what I mentioned a minute ago, besides her permanent emotion being sad, she's been turned away by her friends, and they see her as a disease because she can change these memories sad. Also, I think she's kind of depressed because she is, Riley, her personality is falling apart. Like, they don't have those memories, and so anytime somebody tries to spark up part of her personality, it crumbles and falls. So, and their job is to keep Riley normal and in check. Also, they're far away from headquarters, so they can't do anything. So I think all of those things work together to make sadness depressed. And I really think that this movie can parallel a lot with our lives. So with sadness being depressed and getting depressed over things like that, like, what do we get depressed about? Well, I think that we get depressed over things like guilt. So we feel bad about something we've done, and we think if somebody finds out, they're going to judge us or hate us forever. And so we can kind of fall into depression in that. I think our home life, like, okay, some of us may get physically or mentally abused. Maybe some of our family members go through like a substance abuse. Maybe our family just fights all the time and you don't get any break from it. Change is one of them. With Riley, she moved all the way across the country. That's a big change for, what, an 11-year-old, I think she is? That's a massive change. Also, things like death and divorce in the change part, because that's a massive change. Like if you're used to seeing somebody every day, and then now you don't see them anymore, that can be depressing. Social media. Anybody think about that? You see 1 perfect second of somebody's day. 1. And how many of your seconds do you see a day? All of them. So you compare that 1 to all of your bad little crappy seconds, and you think their life is perfect because yours isn't. And that's not the case. This is one that I thought was very interesting. Our thoughts and reactions can determine our vulnerability to depression. So think of it like a hazmat suit. If you have positive thoughts, they act as the suit. So they will protect you from depression and toxic thoughts, and they act as like a reinforcement. But if you have negative thoughts, they act like holes in the suit, and they let all of those things back in. So if you think with positive thoughts all the time, then you're going to be okay and better protected against depression and stuff like that, which I think is really interesting. But whenever we go through depression, I think we feel really, really lonely because we feel like we're the only person that knows about it. I mean, if you don't tell anybody, then yeah, you are the only one that knows about it. But we think that no one else has gone through it or can help. So we sit here feeling isolated and cut off from the world, and sometimes we make ourselves even more cut off intentionally. But you being lonely is a lie. That's a lie from the enemy. And there are people in this room who have gone through depression and would love to help you get over that because they want to see you overcome it and be truly happy. But better than saying it, I want to show you guys just how big depression can be. So Bethany, can I get about 20 people on the screen? Please. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so I went searching for some facts about depression because I wanted to be informed because I didn't know anything about it. So the first fact that I found, Ms. Bethany, will you please put it up there? Keep in mind, these are for teenagers. This doesn't include adults, okay? So it goes from middle school to like mid-college-ish. So at any given time, 10 to 15% of teens show symptoms of depression. That could be hopelessness, low self-esteem, sluggishness, spending more time alone, anything like that. 10 to 15%. So 3 of those people. And I counted, and there's about 40 of us in here. That would be 6 of us in this room. Can I have the next one, please, Bethany? At any given time, 8% have or will have had depression for at least a year. That's a long time to go through depression. It's a long time. And something I read was that depression is one of the greatest things that leads to suicide in teenagers. Imagine having to go through that for a whole year at least. Imagine where you would be. Can I get the next one, please, Bethany? At any given time, 5% have major depression. Major depression is a depression that affects every aspect of someone's life. It affects their personal relationships, their school, their work, eating habits and sleeping habits, and overall general health. They typically show like low, dejected mood in every part of their life, and they don't enjoy the things they used to. So they essentially have nothing that can make them feel happy. Bethany, can I have the next one, please? A small percentage has seasonal depression. So like if winter comes and it's cloudy all the time, then they get depressed during that season. Next, please. 20% get depression before they become an adult. So, 20%, what was that, about 4? Was that about 4? So about 8 of us in this room would have depression before we became an adult. And I'm not sure how big that percentage is after you become an adult, but I think that's a lot. 4 out of 20? 8 out of 40? I think that's a lot. But it doesn't just stop there. Bethany, the next one, please. Of those with depression, 15% develop a bipolar disorder. So to add on to the depression, now they have emotions that move like a roller coaster. Bethany, the next one, please. Of those with depression, 30% develop a substance abuse. So whether it be drugs or alcohol or anything like that. Those two are ones that I think add fuel to the fire of depression. I think they cause like a bad little cycle, and so you go through the substance abuse back into depression, substance abuse back into depression, because maybe you feel guilty or something like that, and it just keeps going and going and going and going. Yes, sir.
Is it bipolar where you can get like really mad or stuff? Like you can get like really mad or something?
Like really quickly.
Yeah, my friend has that.
The next one, please, Bethany. Of those with depression, less than 33% get help. Less than 33%. So, 1/3 of all of them would not get help. That's actually a lot of people. I mean, it seems like a small number, 33, but thinking about the grand scheme, I think I looked for the number of teens in America. I think it was like 47 billion maybe? I want to say billion. A third of all of those? Holy crap, that's a ton of kids. All of these, I think it's really big. And this shows that you're not alone. Over half of them have depression, and a lot of them got a whole lot worse. So I think that shows that you're not alone. And I tried to look for a solid percentage of teens with depression, and I didn't find a percentage. This is what I found. These facts and percents are what I found. Some of them could overlap, like the over 1 year and major depression. Those could overlap maybe, but if they didn't, that's how it would look. And I think that's kind of terrifying. And I think that part of it is because that we're really confused today. So we don't really know what's real or what's truth. We don't know what's fake and what's a lie. We get decisions thrown at us every day by people, by like our friends, by family, social media. They say, hey, what do you think about this? Answer me now. Like, they don't give you any time to think about it or go home or research it. And so you just make a decision that you think they'll like because we want to be accepted, right? I think all of us want to be accepted. And that's typically where we do that. We just agree with whatever they say, whether we actually agree with it or not. And I think we can get depressed in that whenever we feel confined to whatever they believe. Because then it's like, I can't be me, I can't do anything I want. I have to entertain them. And we also look in the wrong places for happiness. Like we look in, like some look in drugs, some look in sex, alcohol, anything like that. That's where people look for their happiness, and that's not where they find it. We should really be looking towards God to find our happiness. And whenever we don't find happiness, then I think we get depressed even more, because it's like, well, where am I supposed to be happy? If I can't find happiness where I'm at, then how can I be happy? But I'm going to go back to the movie for a second. So, long-term memory. Do you think that was a daunting task for them to navigate? I'd say so, because they had to make lefts and rights, and they had to make sure they didn't get lost in this endless corridor of shelves and stuff. Like, that's pretty terrifying, because they could get lost forever and never get back and help Riley. But like I said, this parallels to our lives as well. So what's our daunting task? It's not getting through a maze. How many of you, when was the last time you got through a maze? When was the last time? Once.
Actually enjoyed it.
I don't think it's getting through a maze, but I think it's getting through everyday life. Because for some people, every single day is a struggle in its own. I think for most people it is. Some people it's just a struggle to get out of bed. Like you guys said it earlier, it's hard for me to get out of bed. And I think that we all struggle somewhere every day. And I think that keeps a lot of us from doing what we want and actually taking on the day. But I don't think it's just getting over daily life. I think it's getting over the problem. I think it's getting over what causes us to not want to get out of bed. For me, recently, that was insecurity. I felt like that I didn't know who truly loved me. I felt like I wasn't really good enough to be loved or to do the things I love. And I actually wondered if the people that said they loved me would still be in my life tomorrow. That's kind of how bad my insecurity was. And that kept me from getting out of bed every morning until I finally told myself, hey, go, it's okay, you're fine. They do love you. So in the little clip, we saw that Joy and Sadness used the manuals to get out of long-term memory because Sadness had read them. She knows kind of the way to get out. But what's our manual? Anybody got a guess? The Bible, yeah. I want you guys to know this little side thing. I want you to know that the Bible is very important. It's not just some old textbook with random things in it. It's not old information. It's still relevant to all of us today. Because whenever you read it, God can use it to teach you different things in how to get through everyday life. And something I think is really cool is that no matter how many times scientists have tried, they still haven't proven the Bible wrong. Isn't that amazing? This book has not been proven wrong. And it's full of information that can help you get through your days. You just need to take a minute and look through it to find where you need to go. So, I'm going to look in the Bible at 1 Kings 19. Whenever we look at 1 Kings 19, we find Elijah. And Elijah is a prophet of God that was sent to the Israelites who were worshiping a false god named Baal. And Elijah was sent to tell them that Baal isn't real. And so in chapter 19, Elijah has just defeated those prophets. They said, okay, we're going to make an altar, you make an altar. We're going to make a sacrifice, you make a sacrifice. We're going to pray whoever's God answers with fire, they're real. So, Elijah was one prophet. He had to face 950 other prophets. 950 prophets of a false god. That's not the one, it's not the daunting task that I want to talk about though. What I want to talk about is in these next few verses. So, chapter 19 verses 1 and 2 says, Now Ahab told Jezebel everything Elijah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. So Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah to say, May the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I do not make your life like that of one of them. So what she's saying basically is, you killed my people, I'm going to kill you. That's essentially what she's saying. So, let's find out what happens in verses 3 through 5. Okay. It says, Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. When he came to Beersheba in Judah, he left his servant there, while he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness. Bless you. He came to a broom bush, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. I have had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors. Then he lay down under the bush and fell asleep. So, he just proved that his God was the real God and that nothing could confine him. Yet this one death threat sent him running into the wilderness, begging God to take his life away. I think that was because sometimes it's easy for us to forget that we have the creator of the universe on our side. We do. We don't see him every day because he doesn't walk with us, and we don't hear him. We can't have like a physical conversation like John I can't talk to God face to face like I can talk to you. So, it's sometimes very easy for us to forget that God is with us and will protect us. I also think that he kind of sounds like Sadness from the clip, because he's saying, I've had enough, and just take my life. And Sadness is like, oh no, I'm too tired, I'm too sad to walk. In verses 5 and 8, it says, Then he lay down under the bush and fell asleep. All at once an angel touched him and said, Get up and eat. He looked around, and there by his head was some bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. He ate and drank and then lay down again. The angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you. So he got up and ate and drank. Strengthened by that food, he traveled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. So, question for you. Going back to the clip, was long-term memory where joy and sadness were supposed to be? No, it wasn't. Do you think that the wilderness or that mountain was where God originally intended Elijah to be?
No.
I don't think so. I think it was probably more of a detour on Elijah's part. That's what I think. But either way, whether it was intended or not, God still stopped to help Elijah and to care for him. Like, we see he woke up and there was hot bread and water waiting for him. God still took the time to take care of him, even though he ran away. And we also see that God is kind of like the voice of joy. He's not going to drag you around or make you do anything, but he will ask you to go with him and to do things for him. He'll say things like, You're my child, you're my inventor, my poet, my creative child, my artist, my rock star, anything like that. And he's going to say, I need your help because you are the one that I have equipped the most to do this specific job. Isn't that cool? I think that's pretty cool that he will tell us specifically that he wants us to do this job. And kind of a side note that I made, you can hear God's voice anywhere in your day-to-day life. You can hear him in the conversations you have with people. You can hear him in the circumstances you're in. You can hear him in experiences that you've had in the past. You just got to be on the lookout for him. But for us to get where God originally intended for us to be, we have to go through our long-term memories. I think that can be kind of hard to do, though. In the movie, though, it wasn't that hard for them because Sadness had already read the manuals and she kind of knew which way to go. They also ran into who?
Bing Bong.
Bing Bong! They ran into Bing Bong. And for those of you who don't know, Bing Bong is Riley's imaginary friend from when she was a child. And Bing Bong, now that he's not being used as an imaginary friend, he now runs around long-term memory and he takes the memories from Riley's childhood, which is kind of creepy. But they knew where they were going and they kind of knew the area. But I don't think that we really know the area that well. And maybe even we do know it well, so well enough that we know what we're going to experience, but we just don't want to experience that again. So for an example, for me, I ran into my parents' divorce. Whenever I was a kid, they divorced when I was about 2. And growing up, I didn't really think it affected me because I've grown up with it my whole life. I knew, on this weekend we go to mom's, on this weekend we go to dad's, on this Tuesday, on this Thursday I'm with blah, 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 blah. I knew where I would be and kind of how it worked. And so I didn't really give it much of any thought. But after looking at it, their divorce affected all of my life. Like, okay, so they're not getting remarried again. That's not going to happen. So I'm still going to have to go back and forth. I'm still going to have 2 birthdays, 2 Christmases, 2 blah, 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 blah. And even whenever I have children, they're going to have 2 and 2 and 2 because of their divorce. So it actually affected way more than I thought it did. It created that insecurity I talked about earlier. It made it to where I don't really feel like, I'm cared for. It's made it really hard for me to have relationships because my natural reaction is to assume they're going to be gone in a few days, maybe, randomly, anytime. And I feel like I don't have a permanent home because I'm constantly having to move every other week to someone else's house. It's more of like a glorified sleepover every week. And odds are sometimes if you look in my car, I'll have a duffel bag. Chances are it'll be in there. And it's also made me feel like I need to prove myself, because if one parent wasn't good enough for the other, then am I good enough for that parent? Or am I good enough for anybody else, really? And so it affected a whole lot more than what I assumed. Okay, going back to the movie. Does anybody know kind of what Bing Bong did?
Yeah.
What did he do?
He sacrificed.
Mm-hmm. So he helped Joy and Sadness get back to headquarters. So, relating that to us, the things that we run into are things that help us get to where God wants us to be, whether we've already dealt with it or not. But I think the hardest part for us is knowing that we're going to have to run into that and re-experience that pain. Because that's kind of hard to do. It's hard to voluntarily run head on into pain. And, I mean, in today's society, we're not really supposed to show pain, are we?
You get made fun of.
Exactly. You get made fun of if you show pain or hurt or sadness. So we feel like we shouldn't run into that, or we feel like we should just keep sweeping it under the rug, hoping it'll just go away. But odds are that's not just going to happen. Social media says, hey, if you have a problem, take this fancy little rug here, sweep it under, take this mask, put it on, everything will be fine. How many times does that happen?
I don't give a shit.
Never. That doesn't happen. Those things sit there. And what happens whenever the rug is too small to cover everything you've put under there? You can see everything. You can't keep everything under the rug forever. Does anybody know the shortest verse in the Bible?
I've heard of it.
Jesus wept. Hello? Hello?
Jesus?
The shortest verse in the Bible is Jesus wept. So for somebody to know that Jesus wept, he had to do it openly, right? Not in a corner by himself where nobody could see. He cried openly. And the Bible also says that he felt sorrow often. I think this is because on earth, he could see the hearts and the minds and the behind the mask of every person on this earth. I think he could see that. And, I mean, he still does. He still knows what's in our hearts, what's in our minds. He knows our pains and our struggles and what we're going through. And something I think that's really cool is that the man Jesus wept for was a man that Jesus knew would come back to life in the matter of minutes, because he was the one that was going to bring him back to life. So Jesus took the time to cry with those people publicly. And that's because there is healing in sadness. You find that out in the movie, right? Sadness was able to make Bing Bong feel better after he'd lost his magic wagon thing. Sadness was able to make Riley stop running away. There's healing in sadness. And the Bible even tells us. In Matthew chapter 5, it says, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." That's why Jesus wept, for the comfort of other people and to grieve. Whenever we grieve and we show open sadness for something, we're solidifying its existence. I mean, if we don't do that, then it's like sweeping it under the rug and forgetting about it, saying it's not there. So grieving openly, it sucks, and it's saying, hey, this happened and this sucks. But then God comes in and he says, hey, trust me, everything will be fine. And I'm sorry this happened, but I'm with you and I love you and I care about you. And I'm sorry that this happened to you. But God's not the only one that comforts us. We have other Christians to help comfort us. Like, look around, please. Look around. You see all these people? You see all these lovely faces? They're here to help you. That's what we're called to do as Christians, is help each other and other people. And so, like Joy in the clip, Christians can help us move along and help encourage us to keep going. And like Sadness, sometimes we want to stay where it's comfortable, but once we start moving, we realize, hey, whoa, this feels kind of good. It feels kind of good to keep going. Also, in the Bible, God promises to give us rest. And we're also called to be free. So sometimes we feel like we're free, but really we're not. We go around chained up by all of these things that keep us down, like the decision that I was talking about earlier. Sometimes we feel like those keep us back. Sometimes insecurity, everything like that. We just feel chained up. And we're actually called to be free. We're called to be free from sin, from shame, from the reasons we don't want to get out of bed. And we have to go through that old pain in order to get there. I mean, it sucks to go through that pain, but looking at my life, going through that pain is worth it, because I'm not constantly reminded every day about that stuff. I'm not constantly reminded about my insecurity. I don't have to deal with it every day because I went through it. It's allowed me to have rest and freedom and comfort and peace. And I want you guys to know that you're not alone. Like I showed you up there, over half of those people had dealt with depression. I know they're not real people, but odds are a lot of us in here have probably dealt with it. So you may think that you're alone, but you're not. I even mentioned it earlier, there are people in here who have already gone through depression and would love to help you and see you get out, because we're called to be free and we're called to help each other. So I want you to know that you're not alone. Like, you can come to me, Jason, Lexi, any of the youth sponsors, and we would love to help you guys get through this, because I think it's more of a problem than people make it out to be, and I think it's a bigger problem than people think it is.